Would you look if a mirror could show you tomorrow's reflection? That was the question printed on the little paper tag tied to the antique mirror's corner. Rachel almost laughed when she saw it. The mirror sat in the back of a dusty thrift shop on the edge of town, half covered by a moth-eaten sheet. She hadn't meant to go inside. She was only waiting for the rain to ease up. But something about the cracked glass, framed in black wood, carved with strange looping symbols, drew her closer. The shopkeeper, an old woman with cataract-clouded eyes, limped over and whispered, "Careful with that one, dear. Once you look, you can't unsee." Rachel smirked. What's that supposed to mean? The woman didn't answer. She simply ran her finger over the frame and muttered something under her breath in a language Rachel didn't recognize. Then she left Rachel standing there with the mirror, heart thumping faster than she wanted to admit. She should have walked away, but she didn't. Instead, she dragged the mirror home. That night, Rachel set the mirror up in her bedroom. The storm outside rattled the window panes, making the lights flicker. She caught herself staring at the mirror longer than she meant to. It wasn't broken exactly, but the glass seemed slightly warped, as if it were filled with water that rippled when you moved. At midnight, Rachel leaned forward. She whispered, "Show me tomorrow." For a long, breathless moment, nothing happened, just her own pale face staring back. And then, the reflection changed. Her image blinked a second too late. The reflection smiled faintly, even though she hadn't. And when it raised its hand, Rachel's real hand stayed at her side. Her stomach turned cold. The reflection leaned closer, lips parting as though it wanted to say something, but the glass fogged over from the inside. She jumped back. It was only then she noticed. Her reflection had a thin red mark around her neck, like a bruise. Rachel gasped. Her hand flew up to her throat, but her skin was smooth. No mark, no bruise. She didn't sleep that night. The next morning, she almost convinced herself it had been a trick of the light. Maybe she'd been tired. Maybe the storm had played tricks on her eyes. But when she went to brush her teeth, she froze. In the bathroom mirror, her normal mirror, she saw it. The faint red mark around her neck. Exactly as she had seen the night before. Her toothbrush clattered into the sink. Rachel stumbled back, staring at herself, at the mark that hadn't been there yesterday. Her hands trembled. She whispered, "What the hell is happening?" That night, she couldn't resist. She sat in front of the antique mirror again, heart hammering. Her reflection looked worse. Its skin was pale, lips cracked. The red mark around its throat was darker now, almost like bruised fingerprints. Rachel shook her head. "No, this isn't real. This isn't happening." The reflection's lips began to move, slowly, deliberately. At first, no sound came, just silent shapes. And then, like a whisper carried on the wind, 3 days. Rachel's breath caught in her throat. "What?" she whispered. The reflection repeated, clearer this time. 3 days. Her phone buzzed suddenly, making her scream. She looked down. It was a text, from an unknown number, just 2 words. 3 days. Her phone slipped from her hands. She looked back at the mirror. Her reflection was smiling. Rachel didn't sleep. Every creak of the house, every whistle of wind against the window made her jump. She taped a blanket over the antique mirror, refusing to look at it, but she could feel it sitting there in the room with her, like a breathing thing, watching. The mark on her neck ached faintly, though when she touched it, the skin felt normal. By morning, she convinced herself she was losing it. Stress, maybe, sleep deprivation, a weird dream brought on by the storm. But the text on her phone was still there. 3 days. And it wasn't from a number at all, just blank. No digits, no caller ID. That afternoon, she tried to distract herself at work, but her mind kept replaying the reflection's whisper. 3 days. 3 days. She almost forgot about it until she was heading home. She stopped at a red light, drumming her fingers on the steering wheel, when she glanced at the car beside her. Her breath froze. The driver looked exactly like her reflection, The bruised neck, pale lips, cracked skin. The woman in the other car turned her head slowly and mouthed the words, 2 days. The light turned green. The car pulled away. Rachel sat frozen until horns blared behind her. When she finally drove home, her hands shook so badly she nearly dropped her keys unlocking the door. That night, she couldn't stop herself. She pulled the blanket off the mirror. Her reflection was already waiting. This time, its eyes were bloodshot, rimmed with shadows, its neck covered in dark purple bruises. It looked like it had been strangled. Rachel's chest tightened. "What do you want from me?" The reflection tilted its head, then raised a trembling hand and pressed its finger against the glass. Rachel leaned closer despite herself. The reflection traced a number. 2. Rachel staggered back. No, this isn't real." But her phone buzzed again. Another text. 2 days. Her knees nearly buckled. She didn't leave her bed until morning. The next day, she skipped work, called in sick. She couldn't face anyone, not when her body was betraying her. Because when she looked in her bathroom mirror, the mark around her throat was darker. Bruises forming in the exact shape of fingers. She pressed trembling hands against the sink. "I'm dying. Oh my God, I'm dying." The thought looped endlessly in her brain. That evening, Rachel tried to throw the mirror out. She dragged it into the hallway, shoved it toward the door, but it was heavier than it had any right to be, like it didn't want to leave. Gritting her teeth, she pulled harder, until the mirror tilted forward. The glass rippled like water, and her reflection's hand shot out. Rachel screamed, stumbling backward as the hand smeared against the inside of the glass. Her reflection's face pressed against the surface, whispering something she couldn't hear. Finally, it stopped moving, and written in condensation across the glass was a single phrase, "Tomorrow night." Rachel collapsed against the wall, sobbing. Her phone buzzed one last time. She didn't want to look, but she did. The message read, "One day." Rachel didn't open the blinds the next morning. She didn't answer her phone, didn't check her email, didn't eat. The mark around her throat was undeniable now. 5 bruised fingerprints, as if invisible hands had tried to choke the life out of her while she slept. She kept touching her neck, hoping the skin would feel normal again. It didn't. It hurt. By noon, she realized she was trembling constantly. 1 day left. Her mind circled the same thought again and again. If the mirror shows tomorrow, then tomorrow night, I die. She tried to reason with herself. Maybe the whole thing was an elaborate prank. Maybe the texts were coming from some hacker. Maybe she had imagined the reflection whispering. But deep down, Rachel knew better. The reflection wasn't predicting her death. It was promising it. As the sun dipped lower, shadows thickened in the corners of the room. Rachel couldn't stand to be in the same space as the mirror anymore. She grabbed a hammer from the kitchen drawer, hands slick with sweat, and stormed back to the bedroom. She stood over the mirror, hammer raised high. "I'm ending this," she whispered. She swung. The hammer struck glass, but instead of shattering, the surface rippled. Her reflection moved differently again, lagging behind, grinning wider, watching her swing again and again in vain. No, break!" she screamed, slamming the hammer until her arms ached. The mirror didn't crack. Instead, her reflection slowly raised its own hammer, identical in every way, and pointed it at her. Then it mouthed the words, "Midnight." Rachel dropped the hammer, stumbling back. She wrapped the mirror in blankets, shoved it into her closet, and locked the door. But she could still hear it. A faint tapping from inside, like knuckles on glass. Tap, 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 all night long. At 11:57 p.m., her phone buzzed. She was curled in bed, sheets pulled over her head like a child hiding from monsters, but she couldn't ignore the sound. Her hand shook as she picked it up. The message read, "Look." Her closet door creaked. Rachel froze. Slowly, the door swung open on its own. The blankets had slipped off. The mirror stood uncovered. and in its surface, she didn't see herself lying in bed. She saw herself hanging from the ceiling, a rope cinched around her bruised neck, eyes glassy and dead. She dropped the phone. No, it's not real. It's not real. The mirror Rachel began to sway, limp, her lifeless feet dangling inches above the floor. Rachel pressed her hands over her eyes, whispering, "It's not real! It's not real! It's not real!" Her phone buzzed again. Without meaning to, she looked. The message read, "Now." The bedroom light flickered, and then Rachel felt it. The rope. Something tightened around her throat. Her hands flew up, clawing at the air, but there was nothing there. No rope, no hands, just the crushing pressure squeezing her neck as she was dragged toward the ceiling. Her scream was strangled into silence. In the mirror, her reflection was still swaying, still smiling faintly. Rachel's vision blurred as she clawed at her throat. Invisible fibers dug into her skin, crushing her windpipe, pulling her upward. Her feet kicked helplessly against the air. The room spun, light flickering in dizzy pulses. "This is it," she thought. "It's killing me. The mirror is killing me." Her hand brushed against the hammer she had dropped earlier. Desperate, she swung wildly. The invisible rope loosened just enough for her to drop to the floor, gasping and coughing, throat burning with fire. She lay there for what felt like hours, every shallow breath scraping her lungs. When she finally forced herself to look at the mirror again, her reflection was laughing. Soundless, but unmistakable. Rachel's nails dug into the floor. "You want me dead." The reflection tilted its head, lips moving again. This time, Rachel could hear it. "Tomorrow. Last night." Her stomach lurched. "No, you already said tonight. You already said midnight." Her reflection only smiled wider, bruised face glowing pale in the rippling glass. Rachel shook her head violently. "No, no more." She grabbed the mirror, yanking it off the wall. Its weight nearly crushed her as she dragged it through the hall. She threw open the front door and staggered into the yard, rain pouring down, mud sucking at her bare feet. Screaming, she hurled the mirror onto the pavement. It didn't shatter. Instead, it landed upright, like it had been planted there on purpose. And the reflection inside? It wasn't Rachel anymore. It was her neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, the sweet old woman from 2 houses down. Rachel's jaw dropped as Mrs. Callahan's reflection looked straight at her and whispered, "You're not the first." Rachel stumbled back. Not the first? Her head spun. She thought of the bruises on her neck, the countdown, the texts. Was this happening to other people? Her phone buzzed in her pocket. With shaking fingers, she pulled it out. Another message. This one had a picture. A grainy, low-resolution image of a man she didn't recognize. Eyes bulging, rope around his neck, dangling. Beneath it, a caption. "Yesterday." Rachel's stomach turned. The mirror's reflection changed again. Another face. A young woman this time, mouth stretched in a scream, blood running down her cheeks. Her phone buzzed with another photo. "Last week." The rain hammered harder, and Rachel backed away from the mirror, from the faces pressing against the glass. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Men, women, children, each one twisted in death, each one staring at her. Her phone buzzed over and over, filling with photographs she couldn't bear to look at. Her reflection finally returned, bruised, bloodshot, grinning. It lifted a finger and traced something on the inside of the glass. Numbers. 328. Rachel's lips trembled. What does that mean?" The reflection whispered, almost tenderly. "You're number 329. She dropped the phone. Her breath came fast and shallow. "No, I won't. I won't be next." Rachel turned and ran into the night, leaving the mirror standing in the rain, glowing faintly in the dark. But as she fled, she swore she could hear it whispering behind her, counting down. Rachel didn't remember how far she ran. Blocks blurred together, wet sidewalks, flickering streetlights, the sound of her own ragged breathing. She didn't stop until her legs gave out, and she collapsed against the side of a gas station, chest heaving, throat burning. For a few blessed moments, she thought she was safe. Away from the house, away from the mirror. But when she glanced up at the glass window of the station, her heart nearly stopped. Her reflection wasn't moving. It just hung there, limp, bruised, a rope cutting into its swollen neck. Rachel stumbled back, gasping. "No! No! It followed me!" The clerk inside gave her a strange look, but when she turned back to the window, her reflection was normal again. Shaking, pale, terrified, but alive. Rachel pressed her hand against the glass. "I'm not going to die," she whispered. "I won't let it happen." That night, she refused to go home. She checked into a cheap motel, dragging the dresser in front of the mirror on the wall. She didn't want to see her reflection again, not anywhere. She sat awake all night, phone clutched in her hand, heart hammering with every passing minute. At exactly midnight, her phone buzzed. Her blood ran cold. The screen lit up with a notification. 3:29. Her chest tightened. No, please. The room's light flickered. She froze. Slowly, she turned her head. The dresser she had shoved in front of the motel mirror was sliding across the floor, by itself. Wood scraped against tile, inch by inch, until the mirror was exposed. Rachel squeezed her eyes shut, whispering prayers she hadn't spoken since childhood, but she could feel it pulling her gaze. And when she finally looked, it wasn't her reflection staring back. It was her body, hanging, swollen, dead. Behind the corpse, in the background of the reflection, she saw something worse. Rows upon rows of mirrors, stretching endlessly into blackness, each one filled with another victim swaying silently, eyes fixed on her. And in the very back, almost hidden in the darkness, she thought she saw herself. Another Rachel, smiling faintly, watching. Her phone buzzed again. With trembling hands, she lifted it. The message read, "Look behind you." Rachel's breath stopped. She didn't want to turn. Every instinct screamed not to, but she did. And standing in the corner of the motel room was her reflection. Not in glass, not in water, in flesh. Its neck was purple and bruised, head lolling at a broken angle. Its eyes were glassy, its lips pulled into a sick grin. Rachel tried to scream, but the thing lunged, cold, rotting fingers clamping tight around her throat. The last sound she heard was her own voice, strangled and broken. The last thing she saw was the mirror, where her reflection hung peacefully, swaying like a pendulum. And then, darkness. The next morning, the motel clerk found the room empty. No sign of Rachel, except for a single cracked phone on the bed. On the screen was the last message she had received, just one word. Next.